Well, welcome everyone to Global Travel Media's exciting and what I would say highly topical webinar and panelist session, What Might the Future of Cruising Look Like? Very carefully chosen, what might the future of cruising look like? So not committing anybody or holding them to anything they say today, but also I looked around and I think this is a world first asking this question at this very topical time for everyone, but especially of course for travel and cruising. And we have 14 top cruise and industry leaders for you to hear what they have to say about what might the future of cruising look like. Just a bit of general housekeeping. Should take about an hour to get through everything. It's going to be fairly tight. I doubt it'll be less. And this session is live on Facebook at this point in time, we hope. And it's being recorded and will be available to view through Global Travel Media and our Global Travel Media TV YouTube channel. So after this, please feel free to distribute to your friends and colleagues, bosses, and everybody to prove that you actually do something from time to time. No, I'm only kidding, don't worry. But everybody everywhere, wherever they are, as this is a world first. Now, some operators have said they can't speak about their future health and safety protocols as they've not been announced yet. But others have said they're very happy to do so. But the key to this is for us all to get a feel from the experts of the future of cruising and what it might look like. Generally, the panelists should be full screen, as I hope I am now, but I may not be. But we may switch backwards and forwards. And as I mentioned before, the technical stuff is being run by one of the new owners of Global Travel Media, Stu, and his partner, Gam, from our Bangkok office. So it's hard to imagine having a more prestigious, knowledgeable, and experienced group of cruise experts in one place, and especially on one webinar. It's been difficult to get everybody together, but thank you everybody for joining us, and at a difficult time for cruising as well. So our operators range from large global operations, regional, local, adventure, expedition, luxury and cruise river operators. In fact, possibly every sector of cruising, plus experts in the online and travel agency side of the business, and also the cruise sector's international association, CLIA, which has been very strong in promoting exactly what's happening in the cruise space during this difficult time. I'm not going to introduce the panelists before we start, but I will do so before they speak, before each one of them speaks. We asked for questions beforehand, and I'll do my best to get through them if time permits. But if you want to ask questions during the webinar of a particular panelist or in general, click on the chat button on your Zoom screen, click to send the message to me, not all, type in the question, identifying the panelist you want if you want to, or for any panelists. Now, I can't promise we'll get to those questions because time is going to be tight. If we can't get to the question, we'll try and pass it on to the specific panelists to get back to you after the webinar. So let's get going with each of the panelists now. And panelists, you'll have 3 minutes each to give the audience your view of the world. What might the future of cruising look like? And where better to start than with the organization's overall industry association, I suppose, the CLIA, Cruise Line International Association. And Joel Katz, please give us your views about what might the future of cruising look like. Thank you, Joel.
Thank you, John. And I'm glad to be able to provide an update on the work that CLIA is doing and what the future of cruising can look like. At CLIA, we know that our work has never been more critical, both to the future of cruising and the livelihoods of those who rely on cruise tourism. We've all just lived through incredible public scrutiny over the past 7 months, and there are still many naysayers taking pot shots at our industry. So there was never a more important time that we all need to work together as a united cruise community with a common focus. But ultimately, it's our community's passion that's one of our industry's greatest strengths, and will be what supports us as we move towards resumption. I know I'm preaching to the converted on this call, but we all know that cruising is neither the source nor the cause of the virus. The fact is the virus flourishes in social settings, and of course it's the social aspect of cruising that's one of its greatest attractions. So while we hear every day that the science of COVID is still evolving, what we're now seeing is that individual cruise lines are starting to announce their initial health protocols, and we're already starting to see how comprehensive these measures will be. cruising is really an amalgamation of so many other facets of our daily life, whether that's the restaurants, the theaters, the spas, tours, of course, hotels. So while these sectors are slowly able to start returning to some sort of post-COVID normality, what we need to do is to really bring all of that together to what we've been calling a door-to-door approach. So in other words, from the time the guest makes the booking right through the cruise and then onwards to their return home. Already we're starting to see some gradual restarts in Asia, in Europe. And while these may be tentative and in some cases challenging, they are helping to really inform the work that we're all doing, and our engagement with governments, particularly in respect to my role here in Australia and New Zealand. We know that our governments here are particularly risk averse, probably more so than in many other parts of the world. So progress towards what a restart will look like will very much depend on the status of COVID in our local communities and on community transmission. So what we've been proposing to the government is a phased resumption that would allow us to be able to protect Australia and New Zealand from outside infection while our borders remain closed, and would initially mean offering what we're calling Australian cruises for Australians only, and similarly in New Zealand, New Zealand cruises for New Zealanders only, and that's pretty much what we're seeing in those restarts, both up in Asia and in Europe. And importantly, this also will support economic revival. We know that the suspension has already cost the economy here in Australia and New Zealand more than $1.4 billion in lost activity. And as we get closer to the summer high season, it's potentially going to cost another $4 billion, and around 25,000 jobs will be put at risk just in this region alone, including travel agents. So this is really a key element of our ongoing advocacy to government. We know that the travel agent community is essential to the future of our industry. So one of the things that we're particularly focused on is enhancing the resources that are available to clear agents and the professional development that we offer. And then as those protocols that I mentioned are being finalized, these will become a critical part of our training, so that travel agents can then in turn confidently provide that information to their clients. I know that was very brief and probably a little bit rushed, but looking forward to answering some more questions later.
No, it's excellent. And I mean, further on, definitely in what you said today, and there have been announcements today about further suspensions in the region, but it's optimism. You know, your optimism comes through your voice, and in terms of the government being very conservative as well. And we do need to get back into business. But on that note, let's move into the cruise operators now. Brigitte de Vries, you're Vice President, Sales and Marketing, Australia, New Zealand for Genting. Genting Cruise Lines with 3 brands, Star Cruises, Dream Cruises, Crystal Cruises. So what's your view about what might the future of cruising look like?
Thank you, John. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all well today. Look, you know, we're definitely living in a world of uncertainty now, but one thing is for sure, the cruise industry will change after the pandemic. There's no doubt about that. You know, it'll more than likely start with travel bubbles between certain countries who have managed their COVID cases well and have protocols in place. I guess, you know, just know that we at Genting Cruise Lines will only visit ports and countries where this is the case moving forward. Now that said, cruising will be one of the most hygienic and organised and safest places on earth to holiday, I guess, all while delivering a really positive experience and, you know, I guess creating new travel dreams and memories for everyone once more. You know, with all measures in place, it should provide a high level of confidence in the traveller. You know, I think everyone is just so keen to get back up in the air and on the sea, and in having certified measures in place, it will provide much needed confidence in the consumer, but also the trade and our travel partners as well. You know, this will indeed help them convert sales and provide peace of mind for their clients that they will be travelling to safe destinations and also, you know, same with safe experiences. You know, when COVID first hit, we diligently started planning and discussing and implementing all our COVID measures and protocols. And this is something we had in our heart set early in the piece, as we wanted to instill confidence in our partners, along with past and new passengers, but also instill confidence for our industry as a whole as well. We needed to look into the future and focus on what was needed, and we wanted to be ready for when operations resume. So, as a result, we were one of the first in the industry to launch our protocols. And, keeping that in mind too, like we had Explorer Dream here over the last summer for her first deployment here. We were very, very quick to implement temperature checks and infrared screening and health declarations upon check-in, even when COVID had it hit here in Australia. So this is very, late last year, early this year, but we didn't want to take any risks. So we wanted to ensure that all our guests and crews' health and safety was, a top priority. So I guess if we have a look at a day in the life of someone cruising with us in the near future and what they can expect across all brands, the Star, Dream and Crystal, it'll be very similar, something like this, I guess. So up on check-in, terminals, as a positive, will be less crowded. There will be staggered check-in times to ensure that there's no congestion. So check-in and, completing an online health declaration will be done as a compulsory measure. So I guess when you turn up to the terminal, you'll be literally going straight onto the ship. There'll be no delays, no queues. And then upon entering the gangway, there'll be non-invasive infrared temperature checks. Guests will, who show any signs of illness will immediately be seen by medical staff and possibly denied boarding based on their symptoms. And then once guests are on board, they'll be able to move around freely and do what they do, get familiar with the ship, get acquainted with the crew, move around the ship as they want to, and then settle into their cabin, which again has been cleaned and sanitised appropriately with all, hospital grade disinfectants and in line with our protocols. And then just interesting to note too, during the course of each itinerary, every week, every departure, cabins will be cleaned multiple times a day. Everything from the drains to the floors and the walls, that the entire cabin will be deep cleaned. Crowds on board of ships too will be a thing of the past. There'll be less passengers as, we won't be able to operate at full capacity to be in line with social distancing rules. So that in itself will create a really nice, comfortable, guest to space ratio. And then public areas on board, will also go a two-tier sanitisation process, literally, 24/7 around the clock. So, with thorough cleansing, disinfection across all F&B venues, retail, entertainment venues, things from elevators to the kids club and all the associated toys and gadgets that they play with, all the outdoor activity equipment, to the spa and gym venues, all touch points, elevators, handrails, lift buttons, tabletops, doorknobs, they'll all be sterilised and even more so during peak times, such as guests returning to or from shore excursions, disembarking, embarkation, meal periods and so forth. And I guess something that we have been implementing for a long time and that we've had on our ship are sanitizer dispensers, which are always available around the ship, and even our crew members stationed at key venues prompting guests.
You two are closed now, I'm afraid. So is that okay with you? What else have you got to tell us?
Sorry, we're still going. I guess one thing too is we've got 100% fresh air which is filtered across our entire fleet. Shore excursions, so tour coaches will operate at 50% occupancy. And then even movement of crew on board will be limited, across the ship to ensure that they stay in designated zones, and they'll also be temperature checked every day as well. And, our measures have been given the tick of approval by classification, Society D&B GL, which is, we were the first cruise ship to receive this accreditation, which has now put us in a good position to operate in Taiwan with Explorer Dream, where we've we've recommenced operations and with future deployments on the cards. So, there's a fair bit going on there and very positive step forward. But I think, safety is a two-way street, and we do have to ask all guests to use common sense, and, when travelling in the future. We've all worked very hard to incorporate these measures, so we need to make sure that they work successfully. And, we ask guests to, don't travel when you're sick and wash your hands frequently and do all those right things so it works both ways.
Lovely, thanks, Brigitte. And that's the change in a sense, really, isn't it? The guests have to take as much responsibility as they did in norovirus and so on, but they didn't. Very many didn't, but now this is much more serious. But very refreshing to hear about your protocols, Brigitte.
Lovely.
So thank you very much.
Thanks for your time, appreciate it. Thank you.
No, for your 30-minute presentation, that's fine, not a problem. No, I'm only kidding you, don't worry. We'll move across to a different product, very different product now, much smaller ships, to Deb Corbett. She's General Manager, Sales and Marketing, Asia Pacific for Ponant. Very French, well, Yacht Cruises and Expeditions, and of course, Paul Gauguin Cruises. So Deb, tell us your views of what might the future of cruising look like for Ponant and Paul Gauguin.
Well, thanks very much, John, and thanks, Brigitte. It was really nice hearing from you and your in-depth protocols, and nice hearing from Joel to introduce everyone as our clear representative. So what might the future of cruising look like? Well, at Ponant, we actually know what the future of cruising will look like. We're doing it now. Many of you may not know, but Ponant's been cruising for 2 months now. We've already completed 40 cruises along the French coast, in the Mediterranean, and as of this week, we're just finishing our Arctic season. So we know that small capacity with immersive experiences, all in a sanitary bubble, is the future. Why? Because limited guest numbers equals manageable and scalable protocols for boarding, for onboard social distancing, excursions, Zodiac landings, Zodiac outings, and we're seeing that from the 40 cruises that we've just done. It's also about having a really modern fleet. That's absolutely critical, because having a modern fleet provides the state-of-the-art technology that will be able to implement these health and safety protocols. Ponant's able to deliver this due to our fleet being really young and having the latest generation technology on board. So, for example, what Brigitte mentioned as well, we've got able to have 100% fresh air ventilation through all the staterooms, ventilated air renewal in the common areas that are renewed 5 to 6 times per hour, and so much more involved in all of that. And I suppose what's really interesting for everyone listening today is the testament that we have just received from our guest satisfaction results. They've just come in actually this week from the 40 cruises that have been completed across our 9 ships that are operating at the moment. And the results have been excellent. And those guests have actually, in a real life situation, experienced the protocols on board. So my message today is Ponant's at sea, we're evolving, we're monitoring every day, and we're very much looking forward to bringing this experience that we're doing in Europe at the moment into our trade partners, clients in Australia and New Zealand very soon. So thank you very much, John.
Thank you, Deb. And you've got some promotional activity happening shortly, haven't you, that's going to tell agents much more about Ponant?
Yes, in terms of next week, we've got our first online event with a couple of thousand people registered already to listen about our Kimberley's Big Five. So, yeah, we're looking forward to that. Thank you.
No worries at all. Okay, moving on quickly, guys. Damien Perry, you're Managing Director, APAC region for Hurtigruten. Always been a bit of a challenge to pronounce that, but as a Welshman, a little bit easier. 126-year history, the remote coastline of Norway. I've seen many of your ships up in Norway and up towards the Arctic Circle. For you guys, what might the future of cruising look like for Hurtigruten?
Thank you, John. Good to be here. Interesting times, isn't it? Incredibly interesting. Look, we're confident that cruise will thrive again, and the future of cruise is very, very solid. We're having a tough time and a challenging time across the industry right now, but we are believers in the fact that we can create solutions for cruise and for customers going forward. At Hurtigruten, as you mentioned, we do small ships and expedition-style ships along the Norwegian coast and mostly to the poles. And we've actually never stopped sailing through this whole scenario. We basically brought all our ships back from overseas and we warm stacked them for a very short time, and then in partnership with the Norwegian government, we continued immediately with 2 ships on the coast, then 4, then 6 ships. So we've actually seen that basically the future of cruising is actually evolving right now in a very, very fast and rapid pace. You know, we're all learning so much of what needs to be done and what needs to be addressed to deliver an experience for the customer that is both safe, secure, but also very engaging and remain authentic. That's an important part for expedition cruising, that the experience remains authentic and genuine. So what we're trying to achieve now is to create a safe space for people to travel that also allows in small groups that interaction and engagement without being too sanitized or too false. So we have to make that interaction engagement with people as we go. During this period right now, we've been pivoting and focusing and continuing to develop our safety protocols, and we've got a huge amount which we can talk about later. But the customer experience remains the number one focus. That has to be the number one focus, otherwise cruise will not bounce back. That is where we really believe we are putting all our attention, in addition, of course, to safety, as everyone on this panel will be focusing on safety and safety protocols, which is absolutely paramount. But one of the most important things is that we remain focused on that customer experience, and we remain focused that this is a work in progress that we continue to develop over time.
Yeah.
In some of the more remote areas that we travel, such as Antarctica and the Arctic and the far-reaching poles, there won't be a huge amount of change because, in fact, we're travelling to destinations that are nature-focused. There will be, as Deb just mentioned, focus on smaller groups and bubbles. That's actually a reality of where we need to go so we can control the environment somewhat. But in those really remote areas, it's probably not going to be a massive change to the customer experience. However, what's really, really important is that we focus on those areas that we travel to where we visit, say, small local communities or potentially vulnerable communities. And that's where we have to lift the level to another degree, to the highest point possible, to make sure we don't create risk or there is risk for those local communities. So I think at the moment what we're seeing is that there's a blend between obviously all the wonderful safety work that people are doing, a focus on the smaller groups and the activities, which in fact, fortunately for expedition space, we've got a little bit of an edge because we've always worked in small groups. We've had boat groups and small activity groups. So we've actually been working in an area that's been focused on sanitisation and biosecurity and safety for a very, very long time. It's just working out how we can get to the next level to make sure that customers, our trade partners and our friends feel comfortable in this as well. So from a cruise perspective, that's an operational view. I also think there's some positive opportunities now because cruise has been slammed over the last few months. We've all felt it. It's painful. Sometimes justifiable, sometimes not. Sometimes we've made mistakes, sometimes we haven't, but the finger is pointing at us. And I think this is a great opportunity for cruise to have a step back and a bit of a review and a self-review, I suppose, and look at those issues that really did impact us in the past, such as focus on over-tourism, focus on sustainability, a focus on emissions. And I think this is a great time for us to really have a long-term view of how those things are important to us as an industry, but also to the consumer. Just imagine if every cruise company on this panel had the same mission to move towards zero emission cruising. I mean, that would be such an incredible makeover itself in the industry. So while there are operational aspects now that we can put in place, I think there are some very, very high-level strategic thinking that needs to be done on the whole industry that can really take us forward into the next generation of cruise.
Brilliant.
Thanks, John.
No, thank you, Damien. Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you 100%. And I think the one thing that mustn't go out of cruising is what I call wow experiences. No matter what level of cruising, whether you're on a very large ship, whether you're on a small expedition ship, it has to be a wow experience. And it has to be fun. If it takes all the fun out of cruising, it isn't going to work in the future. And there are so many guests and passengers waiting who are passionate cruisers who want to get back to cruising. So thank you, Damien. Stuart Williams, you've been involved in the industry for a long time. Okay, yes, you're still looking quite young, I suppose, reasonably. So cosmetic surgery does work. But you're the regional manager APAC for Celestial Cruises, based in Greece. But before that, you were 26 years as Managing Director Australasia for the Globus family of brands, which incorporated Avalon Waterways River Cruising. So you've got two strings to your bow in a sense in your views at this point in time. So what's the future of cruising going to look like for you, Stuart?
Thank you, John. You're always a sweet talker, so I appreciate that. I just want to highlight the protocols that people have spoken about, I think are going to be embraced by all cruise operators. So I'm not going to repeat those again, but I just want to let our audience know, especially out of the Australasian region, that we're already seeing demand for cruising product. We're getting a lot of group inquiries. We're actually getting group bookings for 2021 and beyond. So I just wanted to share that with the audience, just to let you know there is business out there. And so we're very excited about that. Now, so one of the things about Celestial Cruises, a lot of people may not be aware of the product. We're a destinational cruise company that specializes in Greece and the Eastern Mediterranean. And what we will be focusing on for our clients is going to those smaller, intimate destinations, Milos, Syros, Volos, Lissau, places like that where there's not an overabundance of crowds, and once the clients get on shore, they can spread out a little bit. The Greek islands in particular have done very well managing COVID, and hopefully they'll come back quickly. And let's cross our fingers, it could even possibly be a bubble between Australia and New Zealand, Greece, whatever. Well, I'd love to see that. Another thing, as far as the larger destinations in those regions, everyone imagines Mykonos and Santorini, and we all know that they are very, very busy. What we're going to be doing is manage with other as our arrival and departure times, and this will help avoid those large crowds of individuals seeing these incredible sites. We're also anticipating that our clients will take longer duration cruises, so we're combining our 7-day itineraries, our multi-destinational itineraries, so that the clients can experience that as well. We're also in advanced bookings now. We're seeing a lot of group, I mentioned that before, but also inquiries by multi-generational families, grandparents, mothers and fathers and children, and large groups as well. And also singles wanting to experience some quality independent travel around these incredible places like the Greek islands. I mean, we aspire to go to those areas. We aspire to go to many parts of the world, but this is a fun place to go. It's an enjoyable place to go, and people just love it. One of the things that we will be focusing on is experience-led holidays, both on and off the ships. And those will be coordinated via our onshore department, our ShoreX department, and we'll be utilizing local authorized providers. And of course, all the protocols that go along with that to protect our clients, to make sure our clients are looked after and managed correctly. Another thing that we're really focusing on, because of our longer duration, we'll be looking at wellness experiences on our ships. Things like including spa, extensive facilities under the theme of relax and revive, and also wellness dining, because you may remember or recall, some of the audience may recall that Greece is associated with blue zone dining. So offering other opportunities like that. One of the questions I'd like to answer as well, because I did ask my company about this, will buffets still be included? For our organization, yes, it will. However, the food will be protected and you'll be served by professionally trained staff. And that gives a variety, because food in places like Greece is very, very important. And we have all sorts of international wonderful dining like all of our cruise companies do, but we want to protect our clients. Another thing will be also extended dining hours and multiple destinational restaurants. This will allow a lesser congregation of people wanting to get into those dining times. And I think someone mentioned this before, but one of the things that we will be doing, especially out of the Australasian region, is putting together fully packaged product from departure, flights, stopovers, pre and post, and cruise through the same operator and the like. So this will provide a fully inclusive product experience for our customers. And that's just a summary of where we think we're going in the future with Celestial Cruises.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Wonderful. I can smell that beautiful Greek cooking now, a bit of saganaki and all this sort of stuff. I mean, just amazing experience. And I've seen your ships around the Mediterranean as well. But moving on quickly, because we are getting over on time. So if you could keep this fairly short, guys, that'd be great. But now, Scott Ellis, you're currently GM Sales for APT Travel Group, and you've got a number of ocean and river cruise products, but you've also got a background because you've worked for Harvey World Travel and Traveland and so on. So what about the future of cruising from your perspective, Scott?
Yeah, thanks, John, and great to see you all here and have the opportunity to have a little bit of a chat about it. I think first and foremost, we see the future of cruising really dependent around travel agents. So I really want to stress that. Coming out of COVID, we see travel agents in high demand as travel becomes more complex than ever before. There will be increased policies and procedures with every line of travel. So we feel that consumers will be really looking out to get the expertise and the assurance of a specialist travel agent. So we see the travel agents playing a really pivotal role into the future. In terms of cruising specifically, agreed with Deb and the gang before, strict COVID protocols in terms of safety will be really, really important, and hygiene. So we won't back over that one again, but something that we're really focused around is the small group element to it. So we feel that there's going to be a real conscious effort to have smaller crowded spaces, not expose people to crowded spaces. We feel that shore excursions with smaller group sizes, it really lends ourselves to the smaller ship operators. I think Damien mentioned that earlier. For us, it's the small river ships and ocean ships as well. And then when you get off the ship, we really feel as though we're going to be spending more time in ports. So less days at sea, really getting into destinations. By having more time in port, it allows us to have more and more shore excursion opportunities with smaller groups again, and gives us the opportunity to avoid that peak period in the middle of the day where you might get some heavy volumes of tourists through particular regions. So more time in the ports is in summary. Smaller group sizes is certainly where our consumers and our guests will be looking at into the future. Thanks, John.
Brilliant, lovely. Thank you very much indeed. And again, I stress the fun mustn't go out of it, the experiential part of it, because people, yes, they go on the ship because they want to have a shipborne experience, but they go because they want to discover the destinations as well. So I think a lot of lessons for us all, and still maintaining the fun. So Anthony, you're General Manager Australasia for Scenic, luxury ocean cruises, river cruises, land cruise tours. You've got a background in other marketing activities as well. So what's the future of cruising look like for Scenic?
Thanks, John, and it's great to be on the panel today. Look, I think a comment was made earlier about the future of cruising. We feel we're part of the future of cruising now. Glenn Moroney, our founder, our chairman, when he designs his ships, he thinks about what is the future trends, what are the experiences, what are the things that, particularly in our niche area in discovery cruises and in the ultra luxury market with Scenic Eclipse. We were looking at what does the future of cruising look like 6 years ago when we started to design the ship, and also with Scenic Eclipse 2 coming. So what does that mean for the future? So we believe that small is beautiful. I think, Damien mentioned the comment about the smaller size ships having an edge, because when you're in a discovery mode or expedition mode, you are creating very intimate, very exclusive, and as you said, John, wow experiences. Let me give you an example. If you're in Antarctica, you can come with Scenic and you can have a helicopter ride from the ship. You just basically walk to the back of the ship, take off with the helicopter and see, 30 kilometers beyond that, or go in a submarine ride. So you don't have to go to a third.
We're losing Anthony there just a little bit, maybe.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we've got you back now, Anthony. Keep going, yeah.
Experiences. If you're in the more traditional, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we've still got you. Yeah, keep on going.
You.
I think we've lost you there, Anthony. I think it's your onboard Wi-Fi on the ship. No, I'm only kidding. It's okay, right? I'm sure it's fine. Just try again. Keep on going a little bit.
I don't know why it's cut.
Okay, well, look, Anthony, we're going to have to leave it there, but we will make sure that the attendees today get some information. If there's any questions about Scenic, we will pass them across to you. Our sincerest apologies that technology defeated us there. So Sven Zika, you're Sales and Marketing Manager for Pando Expeditions. You're a Swiss national, been there for 5 years in Siem Reap. Wonderful operation. Tell me, how's the future of cruising look for you?
Thank you, John. Hi, everybody. I'm dialing in from Siem Reap, Cambodia. We saw the future in small ships long before COVID. So we were starting 25 years ago in building 30 cabin ships and 24 cabin ships. Now we do only 16, 10, and 5 cabin ships. So as it was mentioned before, we think expedition cruises and small ships is the future. Panda operates 17 ships in 5 countries on rivers. It's going to be all the outdoor experience. We have bicycles on board, lots of village walks, and even outdoor dining on the deck is possible. We do visit remote areas. We try to avoid build-up locations. We visit areas which are not disconnected from the rest of the country. The measurements after COVID, lots was mentioned already, but what we really want to put weight on is protect the communities. So if you go and see a village, we will ask our guests to wear a mask, a face mask. Because before Asia closed, the Asians were quite afraid of the foreign arrivals because of COVID. I know it came from Asia, but then it came back to Asia. So we just want to make sure, talk to the village chief first and make sure we're welcome in the villages. We see a lot of bookings for charters, like families, because our smallest ship has 5 cabins. So you can bring a group of friends or family together if you don't want to be mixed with other guests from other countries. And we also think that through the lockdown, lots of maybe elderly people living alone at home got a bit bored and really want to go out now. So we have a lot of departures where we don't charge single supplements. So I think the single traveler will also get higher numbers.
Yeah, excellent. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much indeed. And yes, absolutely. Again, the fun mustn't go out of it. It must appeal to all levels, so single travelers and families as well. I think small cruising is important. Small vessel cruising is important, but for some people, they simply can't afford it. So large cruising vessel is one of the options for them. So it's achieving a balance and having that safety of knowing that they're going to be safe on a ship, which I agree with one of our early presenters who said that actually being on a ship is one of the safest places you can be. And also, I think guests are now used to and getting used to masks as well and hand sanitizer at last. So Francesco Galli Zugaro, what a wonderful name. You're the founder and chief executive of Aqua Expeditions, okay? 13 years ago, Peru's first luxury river and so on, Amazon, keep on going, the Mekong and so on. So what might the future of cruising look like to you, Francesco?
Thanks, John. Well, like everybody else has alluded to, we won't go into the details of all the measures that we've taken to provide that trust and reassurance, because given our size, which is a lot more manageable, like other members on the call here today, we own and operate ships. We have 4 ships. Our newest one actually is we take delivery next week in Ho Chi Minh. There are 15 to 20 cabins. And 13 years ago, when I started the company in South America on the Peruvian Amazon, then 8 years ago, launching the Aqua Mekong, then 4 months ago, in October last year, time passes too quickly, we launched Aqua Blue, our first global explorer yacht based permanently in Indonesia, exploring Spice Islands, Raja Ampat, and the Komodo National Park. And now our newest ship, the Aqua Nera, being built in Ho Chi Minh, and then we take delivery next week, and we ship her out to South America for a 35-day journey all the way out to Brazil, and then up the Amazon back into Iquitos. So we're a small company. We manage 15 to 20 cabins. And I guess whilst I don't plan to have a crystal ball into the future, I can tell you to the trends that we're seeing. And likewise, like other members here, we're definitely seeing a lot of multi-generational buyouts. We're seeing a lot of, because our destinations are remote in nature, the Peruvian Amazon to see pink dolphins, the upper Mekong to do excursions into remote rural areas of the Mekong between Vietnam and Cambodia, and obviously the last frontier of Raja Ampat and the marine biodiversity there and Komodo National Park. They're all low density destinations, big wow factors as far as wildlife and nature, and relatively very remote destinations. So that is obviously a trend that we're seeing, that we're sticking to our DNA of visiting only these places, providing trust and reassurance because our ships are manageable. We've got 30 crew. Every guest group is maximum 4 couples with a naturalist guide. So every excursion is maxed at 8 guests. Yeah. And that will continue to stay true to at least the future of our growth. The demand for next year and 2022 is strong for exactly those reasons. Small groups, remote destinations, and as long as we provide trust and reassurance regarding protocols on the ship and of our crew, the trust is there to have that stickiness with our past guests and our future guests. And buyouts are important for multi-generational celebratory trips and remote destinations. So we're positive about the future and happy to be part of this group. So thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, and a wonderful operation as well. Moving along now to Alison Howarth-West, okay, CEO of Captain Cook Cruises Fiji Island, very strong for Australian guests as well. You've got the 130 passenger Reef Endeavour, and you also have day cruises. So how are things going for you, Alison, with the future of cruising in Fiji? Let's have a look. Has Alison dropped out?
Just mute, Alison.
Just on mute.
That's because I was muted. Not a
There
very
you go, Alison.
It's
It's first time in your life, Alison. Let's not go there.
Yeah. Well, what I was actually saying, John, is thank you for having me, which is an important point to start out with. In a very similar way to many of the other speakers, we being a small ship cruise line, destinationally focused, we sort of feel like the future of cruising looks like us. We've been operating in Fiji for 30 years, and a lot of the style of the product attributes that we have are all about visiting remote locations and destinations, and having a ship that's designed to encourage people to enjoy the fresh air. So Reef Endeavour was actually originally designed to have 168 passengers, and we've reconfigured some of the cabins to create suites and things. So she's actually maximum 130. So the floor to passenger ratio is actually extremely good. And with all the cabins opening to the outside deck, almost all the cabins opening to the outside deck, fresh air is abundant and flowing in and out at all times, along with, as has been said, with some of the other lines that, fresh air through air conditioning, etc. We've also had an enormous amount of work and planning around our hygiene policies, and fortuitously, because we do have the day cruise operation with our 3 sailing vessels and our private island Tavua, we've been able to actually operate a day cruise for locals in the last few weeks, and very happily had the Minister for Health cruise with us a week or so ago. So you could say we passed all standards, having had the big boss on board, thoroughly enjoying himself. So that was very encouraging. But as I said before, I think the experiential based offering that we have with the 3 to 11 night cruises, particularly the 11 night cruise that goes all the way out into the very remote Lao group, where there's just one supply ship a month. That's it. And a lot of the people villages that we visit have never seen, Westerners apart from when Reef Endeavour visits. Those sorts of experiences are very appealing to passengers who are concerned about, or customers concerned about infection, etc. In terms of the travel bubble, and possible future offerings, and I think if you wonder how cruising is going to look out of the Australian market, there's a different phase to it, and I'm happy to know that Fiji is hopefully phase 1 for the travel bubble out of Australia, and we're looking forward very much to sort of having the having Australians and potentially New Zealanders back very quickly. When that happens, and we've taken the opportunity to actually refresh our offering while we've had that time. During this time of COVID, we've been looking at, expanding what we do in terms of environmental sustainability and our rejuvenation programs for coral and our marine biologist programs, and we've refreshed our onboard offerings, and there's a whole range of work that we've done. So it's hopefully not far off. And as some of the others have said, we're enjoying bookings coming in for the future in multi-generational and groups. And and we've got, as I said, outdoor dining, staggered boarding, staggered dining, small group. But really, a lot of what we do is already COVID safe, with small groups going ashore, for our shore excursions, etc.
Well, I'm sure we look forward to lots of bubbles everywhere. And I think Fiji is very, very important in that first stage. I love the idea, and what's come through here as well is how important food is. I know Lindy Milan is on here with us, so she'll be excited to see that we're talking about food. So Alison, we're going to have to move on to the next one now. We've had lots of operators of ships, okay? Lots of enthusiasm. Bookings are happening. We're doing lots of things to make ships and vessels safe for our clients. Fun has to remain. It's got to be experiential. Unfortunately, a couple of the big boys decided not to attend today, and we had a couple of cancellations at the last minute, which I won't go into. Maybe some people don't want to talk about things, but I really appreciate you guys as operators talking about things. But what's important as well is in that supply chain, we've got Carl Fryer here. He's a management consultant. He'll be known to many of you. He's a management consultant for Dreamlines Group for Australia. But before that, he set up Cruise First. So, Carl, from your perspective, what does the future of cruising look like for you?
Thank you, John, and appreciate being a part of the panel and hearing what everyone has to say. Look, from a retail perspective, we completely endorse the future is still looking bright from a cruising point of view in terms of a segment within travel and transportation. We are like others. We're in a fairly consolidated state right now. To ensure that we get through this period, but we're very much in a redesign mode and putting ourselves in the best position for when all of a sudden all of these opportunities that I do think will present and customers are ready to start travelling again and committing again, we're in the best position to do so. And I think from all of my trade colleagues that I talk to, and there's still a lot of them, whether they are in the OTA space or the bricks and mortar space, we're all energised about we will come out of this. We just don't know exactly when. And the issue we all have is just trying to consolidate our businesses until that opportunity exists. So we're confident it will happen. We all understand things will change. The more information shared, the better. But we're very, very confident come when we do see the other side of this, bookings and confirmations will commence. Activity is there, as people have said. We're not seeing as much confirmation around booking, but our inquiry ratios are still very strong. All of our website traffic is still quite strong, but unfortunately, for whatever reasons, that willingness to commit from a booking point of view has definitely tapered. But I've no doubt the moment the opportunity is open, we're ready.
Yeah, and I think the whole thing about the booking side of things is around the refunds, the cruise credits, all that sort of stuff, okay, creates a bit of uncertainty. But there's no question that the avid cruisers are ready to book. There's no question at all about that. They can't wait to get back on ships. They've got absolute confidence in the operators that they're going to do a good job and going to keep them safe. So that's really reassuring. And I'm a member of lots of sort of Facebook groups on cruising. There's no resistance there whatsoever. So thank you.
You make an interesting point, John, about this refund and future cruise credit. And I think it was in relation to one of the questions as well. Look, I actually think the cruise segment hasn't had has also had its problems around gearing up and re-engineering itself around what does it do with the amount of volume of cancellations that took place. There's no doubt about that. But as a segment, I actually think it has done better than most other areas of the transportation industry. If you think about, cruising has pretty much come out and offered future cruise credit straight up front. Yeah. Most cruise lines actually offered more than 100% if from a future cruise credit point of view. All right. Secondly, as all of this pandemic continued to get deeper and the period become longer, they then introduced the option of full refund as well. So in relation to flexibility and adaptability, I think the cruise industry itself has actually done a really good job. And when I compare that to, some of the challenges we're having around the air side of things and hotels, especially internationally, cruise has done an amazing job. The thing that I think that's frustrated some people is the timeframes of refund. Yeah. And I think that's reasonable. I think that's been the major frustration. The majority of customers have been, appreciative of the support. But yes, that has been a big frustration. I think the volume pretty much put cruise lines into about 120 days of backlog, some up to 180 days of backlog. But they've all worked very hard in bringing that down to 30 to 60 days. So we're now copying, as you mentioned earlier, some additional extensions and cancellations, which obviously will impact that. But all cruise lines have pretty much resourced these areas up, and retail-wise, we've gone from 4 in our customer service division to 16. And yes, it's costly, but if you want to be in business at the end of this program, you got to do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. And look, at the end of the day, there's a resource issue there in terms of putting more and more staff on. There's a cash flow issue there as well. And, you know, a bit like flying planes, but I mean, ships in the water are very expensive to maintain. What do you do with a ship with nobody on board? Because it's not just about the money people pay for the cruise, it's about everything else they buy on board the cruise. So just a great segue there, and thank you very much indeed, into Phil Hoffman. You might describe Phil as a doyen of the travel industry. He's got every conceivable award there is on the face of this earth and a highly successful business. So he doesn't need any introduction. But Phil, from a retail perspective, a bricks and mortar agency, highly successful, cruising very important, and I know you've been involved in it for many years. So what does the future of cruising look like for you, Phil?
John, I'm very confident of it. I just want to endorse what Carl said. The cruise lines have been the best out of all the people in the industry in terms of looking after our clients with refunds and whatever. I endorse that 100%. They have been by far the best, etc. I love what I'm hearing of the protocols. John, I think the most important thing is to make sure that we, the agents, get all those from the different cruise lines so that we can communicate that to our clients. Because, John, all I'm getting all the time from clients who have cruised is, Phil, when can we cruise again? I do 3 radio programs a week, and the biggest questions always asked is, Phil, when can you give us the green light? It's not, we won't cruise again. The people that say the negative things are people, when I question them, they go, well, I've never cruised, but, you know, I've read in the paper.
Precisely,
so,
yeah.
That's the thing that we've got to overcome. But I think out of all the databases that we have of cruise people, they're asking when, and when will it be safe, etc. And they know, because they've been on cruise ships, how clean they are anytime. But I love everything I've heard today about what all the protocols are going to be. But I think the biggest thing now is for the cruise lines to train us in all those protocols in terms of how we communicate that, not just some advertising in the paper, but us being able to say to every client, like we're doing now, John, we've started seminars in our office here at Burnell. We've ramped it up, and we've done some where we've got to satisfy the government with COVID-19 safety. But over the one particular day, we had 210 people in over 3 sessions of dividing that up. Enormous booking. So people have got that urge to travel, and we've started now with regular EDMs on our cruise market. And I'm doing both at 2 levels, one at the normal level, another one at the high level with luxury in that. And we're starting to get some good bookings coming through. So, John, I think it's a communication game, both by the principals, but also by the agents, and be positive. I'm sick of the government. I've gone to the Minister of Tourism. I paid him out. I said, you've got to change your rhetoric because you're Minister of Tourism and you're doing so much damage to the industry, and you should be ashamed. I mean, I know him, John, so I can get away with saying that. But, because the cruise industry drops a lot of dollars into the domestic market, and they've forgotten that. They've turned their backs on us.
So what do you think in terms of, Phil, thinking about the government saying, oh, well, there'll be no international travel until, practically forever. And then you've got Alan Joyce saying, okay, our flights, Qantas isn't going to fly any international flights till the middle of 2021. What's your reaction to that? Because that must create a lot of uncertainty in terms of the guests.
It does. And when Alan Joyce did that, that took the wind out of the sail. But have a think about this with Qantas. They don't make a lot of money out of international, so they can use COVID-19 to cut a lot of things out of international, make money out of domestic. Don't quote me, I'll get into trouble, but make a lot of money out of gouging and just international. So he's not in a hurry to bring international back. But I'm saying to the government, you cannot freeze this country any longer. We heard about Fiji. We should be doing bubbles to Fiji, bubbles to New Zealand, and to Asia straight away. And when I hear that Penant's been doing 40 cruises in Europe, I'm excited about that, because that's same with Greece and all that. We've gone negative, and we've got to change the vocabulary, we've got to change the rhetoric, and we've got to be positive, because all I know that every time I go to a coffee shop, John, or a restaurant, or a walk around on a walk, people are saying to me, Phil, I should have been in Japan by now. I should have been in Greece. I should have been in Croatia. They want to travel, John. We cannot hold them back much longer. And look, if we get the protocols right and we can convince our public, which I think is there. I have a 40-40-20 principle or rule, and I have no data to base this on. 40% would travel tomorrow, 40% are waiting for the protocols to be right, and the 20% that not, waiting for a vaccine, which may never happen, are what I call the nervous Nellies. They're nervous anytime. So that's my principle I'm working on, John. So if I can get 80% back travelling again, I'm going to be very, very happy. But I'm getting more positive. I'd love to see some more green shoots by the government with change rhetoric. But as an industry, I think we're going to come through the other end and the demand will be positive.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I do love the phrase that that you just saw, the comment you just made about people say, "Oh, I hate cruising. Oh, I can't stand cruising. Oh, when did you last go on a cruise? I've never been on one." But, you know,
that's right.
The avid cruisers are ready. The naysayers, the anti-vaxxers, the conspiracy theorists, they all believe in what they believe in. But the market has huge pent-up demand. What was interesting there when we talked about the government, and I asked David Ringsell to come on today, he's Managing Director of Easy Travel Insurance, and asked him because somebody known to many of us, Michael Donovan, asked a question about insurance and so on and related stuffs, and thank you, Michael, for that. But he wanted to ask about what innovations, changes, new rules or revised standards are expected from the insurance sector for cruise passengers across the various age categories. And I had a chat with David, and he's going to tell us a little bit now about issues around DFAT and insurance and so on. So, David, welcome. You're not normally involved with these sort of panels on the travel industry, but tell us, your views at the moment.
Thanks, John, and hi to everybody, and thanks for inviting me along. I take it everybody can hear me okay, so I shall continue. Thanks very much for the question, Michael. I puzzled over it for some time because it's such an unknown quantity, not necessarily just cruising, but the travel in general at the moment. And the only things that that I can see happening are something along the lines of what has been suggested when a vaccine is available, insofar as a health passport, like a sort of, if you like, a health visa to be able to travel, and maybe there's something specific getting on and off cruises and what have you. I can't say this out in the marketplace with any conviction about the fact that this will actually happen, but I also believe that there will be specific travel insurance policies that will cover coronavirus, or indeed any pandemic for that matter. As probably most people are aware, pandemics have been excluded out of travel insurance policies for as long as I've ever been in the industry, and probably a lot longer before. So from a point of view of cover of pandemics, obviously it's all excluded at the moment, but I believe that there will be products available that will be specific to coronavirus cover, and it will encompass things such as cruising. So there will be innovations. I don't know what they are yet because I haven't been told, but it's just my opinion that will occur. Your other sort of question that you indicated a little bit there, John, was just about actually being able to travel anyway. Currently, as you're all aware, we're all sort of prisoners here in Australia at the moment, and not being able to travel. There's a DFAT ban, which effectively means that we're blocked from travelling anywhere in the world and leaving the country. So people get exemptions to travel, and that's probably the key to what is happening at the moment, and may well be an ongoing thing. As far as travel insurance goes, and travel, generally speaking, we're still selling travel insurance policies, which is amazes a lot of people, and people sort of say, why are you still doing that? Is it unethical to be selling travel insurance policies? And the answer to that, from our perspective, is that it's not unethical. It's a service that's still provided, because you can still fall over and break a leg, or hurt your back, or have a death in the family. So there's all sorts of reasons why you still have travel insurance. They're all valid. But so the DFAT do not travel is an interesting angle on things, because travel insurance policies, generally speaking, all have a caveat in them that say that if there is a do not travel to a country, and the Smart Travel website is our sort of Bible in this respect. If they say do not travel, then theoretically, then your policy is null and void. So what we've been doing, I've been talking, because we're still selling travel insurance policies, we've been talking regularly to our underwriter. He's the chief underwriter at Zurich, and he's confirmed that policies issued by us at Easy Travel Insurance do cover customers as per normal, even during this time. And the pandemic exclusion does still apply, though. So if a claim has anything to do with COVID, there's no cover. So people need to be aware of that.
Be covered for.
I beg your pardon?
The other things you'd be covered for, all the other standard stuff.
Exactly right, yeah. So the travellers must have the appropriate documents to enter the destination country. And this may now include special permits or visas over and above the usual documentation. But otherwise, this is exactly the same as in non-COVID times, in that you still need a valid passport and visa to travel anyway. So there is no difference there. And if you don't have those things, of course, you're not able to enter a country, but you're also not able to make a claim. So it's worth noting here then that quarantine, whether it be mandatory or other, is not covered by our policies. This is the customer's responsibility and should be considered when exiting and entering a destination. So that may well cross over into the cruise quite a bit more interestingly, given that you may stop in multiple destinations.
Yeah, sure.
But if the country, for example, if you're traveling to Greece, it seems to be a popular one at the moment. If you're traveling to Greece, though, and you get completely cut off from entry due to the coronavirus, that's something that wouldn't be covered. So people need to be aware of that. And of course, if you're on a ship, of course, you may just turn around and go somewhere else. I expect. But
it also doesn't it also depend on the impact or the COVID effect, right? So if something happens, how far do the insurance companies say, well, okay, that was caused by COVID? I was made redundant. I had to cancel. So is my cancellation cover okay? But in fact, I contracted COVID or I was made redundant as a result of COVID. How did they look at that?
Well, what's happening at the moment is, as I alluded to earlier, coronavirus and all pandemics are excluded from cover. However, our underwriter is taking a slightly softer approach on it, and they're suggesting that in all cases, and this has even come up in some medical instances where people have been taken ill, and they do have coronavirus, and we've encouraged people to make the claims anyway, because at the end of the day, the idea is that we don't want to be leaving people high and dry, excuse the pun, with the cruising subject.
You got it.
I hoped you would. And so they're saying, lodge a claim, because it is such a grey area, as you've said. If you get made redundant, then were you made redundant because of coronavirus stopping you being able to work, or the company you work for to continue to trade, or were you made redundant? It's difficult. I think we've spoken a bit about an airline, John. We spoke the other day. That I won't mention the names, but that this particular airline was in trouble pretty much before coronavirus, and now they've taken the steps of ditching half their staff. Those people were made redundant now, but we could argue, were they made redundant because of coronavirus or because of they were going to be made redundant anyway?
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, David. Well, look, thank you very much indeed. Now, look, ladies and gentlemen, as I suspected, we wouldn't have time to take lots of the questions, but we will pass the questions on to people. We had a question from John Lengerker, travel managers, about protocols, COVID protocols. Another one from travel managers about buffets, partly been answered, but we will pass them on to the people that you specifically asked those questions about. But just in summary, I just wanted to say that it's really refreshing to meet a group of people, and I know you're all sort of involved in promoting your businesses, which is great, which is the cruise company that you work for, but the optimism and the enthusiasm, because all the ships are actually, except for a couple like Ponant and so on, and some Hurtigruten ships, are tied up at this point, but the enthusiasm and the dynamism to make sure that cruising comes back on and with a force and in a tremendous way is absolutely amazing. So thank you very much indeed for that. I know with lots of the travel agencies on today, it's been very difficult and is likely to be difficult for you going forward for a while, dealing with the refunds and so on, and future bookings and loss of revenue, because the revenue just dried up. It's as simple as that. So very challenging times. So we all look forward to the board, as Phil said quite rightly, it's time to sort of take another look now. and stop imprisoning people in Australia, and look at the safety consequences, or look at the safety protocols about how we can manage that more effectively instead of just having closure. So thank you very much indeed to all of you. Really appreciate it from all of you as participants, as the audience, and also in particular the panelists for your contribution today, and also to our team in Bangkok as well for running the technical side. This will be on Global Travel Media. It will be on Facebook, on our YouTube channel as well. So, and also if you want to ask any questions or want to make any comments, please just contact us. So thank you for your time today, and have a wonderful weekend. Not far away now. It must be 1 o'clock somewhere in the world. Thank you and goodbye.